Hello everyone, it's Gurmeet here. I was recently invited to IIM Bangalore to give a lecture on prompt engineering. I'll be going on the 1st of March. Now, I know a lot of you cannot attend that lecture because you do not have 99.99 percentile to join that university, plus 25 lakhs sitting in a bank account. So here we are, it's for free on YouTube. Also, you might be wondering that I make videos on entrepreneurship. So why prompt engineering? I honestly believe that every single successful entrepreneur in the world today, they're good at communication, they're good at writing, and I believe the future of entrepreneurship belongs to those people who are good at writing, good at communication, and are good prompt engineers. Being a good prompt engineer gives you the ability to prompt anything into existence. And today we're going to discuss that in depth. It's going to be fun. I enjoy this topic a lot, so here we are. Now, you will see that AI failure is usually instruction failure. A lot of people, what they misunderstand about prompt engineering, about LLMs, about agentic systems. Honestly, before we even dive deep into this topic, let's understand why am I talking about this beyond just entrepreneurship. OpenClaw was recently launched. I have been using it quite a lot in my own agency. OpenAI acquired, or rather hired, the founder of OpenClaw as well. So I'm pretty sure OpenAI is going to release an agentic system soon. Google is going to release its own agentic system soon. So a lot of AI related tech is going towards agentic systems. LLMs are already being used, and prompt engineering is the most fundamental aspect, the most fundamental skill that all of you need to understand to be able to make the most out of AI. And a lot of young people come up to me asking me, Gurmeet, what is the one skill you would recommend me to learn? And I always say AI. And then they get confused. AI is a very broad term. What inside AI do I learn? And the answer is prompt engineering. So let's get started. If you treat AI like a mind reader, you get random results. It is actually a probability engine and not a person. The thing is, a lot of you get a very confusing output. You don't have control over the output you get. What you're supposed to do is, instead of giving this as an input, you're supposed to give a structured cube as an input. I can explain this further by what I mean by probability engine instead of a mind reader. Treat it like a human, right? A human, when you tell it to do something, it gives you an output. A human cannot read your mind. You have to give it proper instruction to be able to understand the output you want. AI works the same way. Another thing interesting about AI is that AI is a predictable engine, meaning that it predicts the next word. So let's say I went to the dash, fill in the blank, right? I went to the dash. It could be gym, it could be the university, it could be college, it could be my work. I went anywhere. AI's job is to predict the next token, the next word. Now, what does this entire pyramid, this mountain range mean here? Well, the longer paths are called valleys, and the top parts are called the peak of the mountains. The peak of the mountain is the word we are looking for. So I went to the dash, right? I went to the gym. Gym is the next predictable word that we want from GPT, and that is the peak of the mountain. Now, when I say GPT, I mean honestly any LLM, I mean AI agents, I mean the whole gist, right? You want an output, and AI predicts the next output. To get to this peak, it's very hard because there are so many other words. It could be college, university, school. How will AI know that gym is the word I'm looking for? That is the importance of adding constraints, right? It could be any word. I went to the hotel, right? There are so many words. These words are called valleys, where there are infinite amount of words, not really infinite, but a lot of words. And the peak is the one single word we are looking for. To be able to get that peak, we have to deal with probability. That's why I told you AI is a probability engine. You have to help AI cut down the numbers to predict that one single word, and you do that by adding constraints. So we'll understand this further. Constraints will basically add a wall in the valley. It will focus the LLM towards finding the single word at the peak and eliminate the valley. That's one way of helping AI get to the right answer. That is the gym here, for example. The second thing is another option here. Let's say we don't want to talk about gym. I go to the gym might be the most predictable word for AI. But what if I'm not talking about the gym? What if I'm talking about a date? I went to a date today, right? A date is a very vague word. It can be a word inside the valley. Now, how can AI probably predict a word that's not at the peak of the valley, but instead at the bottom of the valley? You do that by adding a rigid box of constraint. So there is one way to add a constraint here, which will remove all the valley words so that we can focus on the peak. And the other method is by adding a proper rigid box inside a valley itself. Where there are too many words, you still add a box so it finds a specific word inside that box. And the goal of a prompter is to be able to do this. And that is what we're going to learn today, is how do we control that probability. Okay. Now these slides are going to be very easy to understand because I have explained the whole probability concept. The idea is simple, that this is the mechanism of how AI thinks. The project is due on, it could be Monday, it could be Friday, or it doesn't know the answer, right? AI predicts the most likely next token, and our job is to help it understand what that probability can be. And this is basically by giving context plus instruction will give you a reliable output. Now, if I tell you, today I went to the dash, that dash can be anything. But what if I tell you, I am Gurmeet, I am 24 years old, I live a healthy lifestyle, I exercise every single day, I work from home, I have a very strong routine. Now it's much easier for you to predict that I went to the gym, right? That is context plus instruction. That will help GPT give you a reliable answer. And that is how we're going to learn today how to do it. This is the simple master framework. This is phase 1. We will have this video divided into multiple phases. Phase 1 is understanding the framework to get the desired output. First thing is role, okay? Tell AI how to think. Now, a senior Python engineer will help AI understand that it has to think like a senior Python engineer. An enterprise sales strategist will help AI understand to think as an enterprise sales strategist. Let me give you an example. We all know who Hitler was, right? Hitler killed millions of people. He trapped Jews in tents and tortured them. He believed in the ideas of Aryans, where people with blue eyes, good looking, blah, blah, blah. That's the story of Hitler. Now, if I tell you to summarize Hitler's journey, you're going to do it. What if I give you the role of, let's say, an artist? Summarize Hitler's journey as an artist. Now the whole summary is going to be very different. You're going to focus on the aspect of artistry in Hitler. Was Hitler an artist? Did he kill a major artist? Did he change the course of artistry in this world? You're going to talk a lot about art. That is the difference between adding a role and not adding a role. That is why when you prompt AI, always add a role to it. And it's very essential to get the desired output. And in your working environment, you can add roles like senior Python engineer, enterprise sales strategist, a designer, a founder, whatever role suits you. Second thing is context. Tell AI how to think, right? What to think. AI cannot assume missing business context. Let's say I want AI to give me a go-to-market strategy for a chocolate. It will give me a go-to-market strategy for a chocolate, but it lacks context. What if I tell AI that the chocolate is worth 200 rupees, it cost me 40 rupees to make, it is this flavor, it is made with this ingredients, this gives it context. Now it will find me a go-to-market strategy where every data point mentioned in the strategy is more accurate to what I want because it has context on the price range, on the kind of ingredients, on the sourcing, on the city, on the country. That is context. Role and context together gives you a much better output than without it. Third thing is task. Now we will understand task better in phase 2, but the idea is simple, that you need to tell AI exactly what its task is, right? Making a strategy is a task, but a task in itself is not enough. You also need to make AI realize that don't do one task, do multiple tasks. So let's say you want a go-to-market strategy. There's a lot of things that go into that, right? The cost, the hiring, the design, the website, there's a lot of things put together that tells you a go-to-market strategy for selling chocolates. So divide that into multiple tasks and then tell AI to work on it individually. That gives you a better output. Then we've got constraints. Now everything we've spoken about so far are constraints. Task is a constraint, right? We have, the slide is not going back. Okay, yep, it's going back. Role, context are all constraints. Task is also a constraint, but you can go beyond. Now remember at the beginning of the video, we spoke about adding a box in the valley, right? There are two things you can do. Either add a constraint to eliminate the valley, but if your word is in the valley, where there are too many words and you have to find a random word in that, then you add a box. That is done by adding a specific constraint. Keep words under 200. Avoid jargon, right? Talk to me as a 1-year-old, goo goo gaga, right? These are constraints. This helps the LLM to give us a better output. And keep in mind, folks, you're watching this video, whatever we're learning today is not just for LLMs, it's also for agentic systems. If you're using OpenClaw, if you will be using the future of OpenAI, you need to understand prompt engineering because it will help you build teams much more cost efficiently and give you much better outputs. Then comes format. Now, this is an important concept. I see a lot of beginners struggling with this. A good prompt engineer always tells the LLM to give a formatted answer. Give it in JSON format, a tabular format, an executive summary, a Word document, an Excel sheet. Tell LLM to give you the exact format and it will do just that. And finally, validation. You need to check for assumptions. You need to make sure that there are no logical errors. Because at the end of the day, AI is not God. It is a system similar to humans. Humans make errors and that's how you train it. You have to validate it and help it learn. And following this master framework will help you get a more controlled output than when you try to get the output without a framework. I hope you're all clear here. Let's go on to second phase, or rather just let's understand the simple example as well. Here is a novice prompt engineer. He gives it a summary, it gives it a structure and tells you to summarize it, right? An engineer, a prompt engineer will tell you are a senior analyst, summarize for an executive, focus on risk, output as bullets. We've used all frameworks here and the output is going to be much more structured. And that is a good prompt engineer. Now, let's go on to phase 2. Phase 1 was simple. We understood how to add a framework to get a desired output. But that's a single prompt. Now you don't expect, it's as, like, I can give you examples of human as well, right? If I tell an intern to go build a software for me, he's an intern, he doesn't know how to build software. But if I tell the intern to go build a strategy for me to build a software, after the strategy I tell him to build a framework. After the framework I tell him to build an architecture. After the architecture I tell him to choose a specific code language and start building an MVP. After the MVP and feedback we build a more in-depth software. That is called a framework, a workflow, getting to the output through multiple steps. That is tasks, what we learned about initially. So complex work should be broken into stages, exactly like human teams. Don't ask for a miracle in one prompt. Never ask for a miracle in one prompt. And that's how you do it through input, stage 1, stage 2 and output. I hope this is also clear. Now, let's understand this a bit further. And there are many ways to do this, right? You can divide a task into multiple systems, that is multiple agentic layers. Or let's say, assume you're using an LLM. Tell the LLM to first research. Let's say a go-to-market strategy for selling chocolates. Don't tell it to make you a strategy. Tell it to first research. So follow the framework, give it the context, give it the role, give it the rules, give it the structure, give it the constraints, and then tell it to research the market. After it comes up with the research, tell the LLM to analyze the research it came up with. After it analyzes and gets some insights, then tell it to use that insight to form a strategy. After it forms a strategy, then tell it to create a document so that we humans can execute on it. And if you're using an agent, tell it to execute it itself. That is how you follow a workflow. A lot of people are still stuck in a single prompt. They're like, do this, build SpaceX for me, right? Make $100,000 for me. The thing is, you can actually build SpaceX. You can actually make $100,000 if you follow workflows, if you follow frameworks, but no one really does that. They use a single prompt and expect a magical output. Now let's go beyond it, right? How do you make sure the output is precise? The simplest thing that you can do, which I personally do often as well, is giving it examples. Input, great job, is a positive sentiment. I am sad is a negative sentiment. So, and you give a new input and it'll predict a segment. Now the best part here is you've given 2 examples at the top. Because it has reference, it will give you an output similar to that reference. Every time I want a PPT, for example, this PPT as well I made using AI. I did not just tell it to make me a PPT, I gave it a reference. I made an MVP of the PPT, I gave it examples and then it made me this PPT. I gave it the actual copy as well. Because I gave it so many examples, it was able to give me a similar output that I desired. Similarly, add symbols to divide instructions. Now this is another important thing that a lot of people tend to ignore, and this can avoid a lot of basic errors. So we learned a framework, role, structure, constraints. Those are instructions. Give those instructions at the top and add a symbol before you go on to data. So let's say I have a complex website that I need to analyze, right? Website is the data. So first I give instructions, then I add a symbol to divide between the instructions and data. So the LLM or the agent knows the division. If not, the LLM can get confused. This is basically how we speak to humans with punctuations. You see how I stopped after punctuations? Because there was a full stop. When you add a full stop, or when you add a comma, you take a pause. Similarly with AI, you got to add certain symbols to let it know that there are divisions between instructions and data so it does not get confused. Now, this is phase 3, and that is the importance of actually adding validation, reliability. Now, this again is a very essential thing. I'm so confused why so many people don't understand this. That is, just like humans, AI can make errors. Now, AI can make up assumptions. The problem is, for example, I told you to make a go-to-market strategy for chocolates. I am not assuming anything. I'm telling AI that don't assume anything. This is the price, this is the city, this is the location, this is the market, this is the ingredients, this is the flavor. But even I as a humans don't know all the data points, and even I can make errors. Similar to that, AI can also, it cannot actually have all the data points. It will make errors, it will assume certain things. That is why it's important that once you get the output, you actually verify the numbers, you verify the sources, and you check for assumptions. When you find errors, you let GPT know or LLM know that, hey, this is the error, this is what it's supposed to be, fix it, so that it fixes it and understands and improves. And if you find everything to be right, you let it know, good job, this is exactly what I wanted. Validating it helps you improve the LLM or helps you improve the agentic system. Humans and interns work the same way. When you hire an intern who is a human and it makes errors, you then verify the numbers as a senior manager, you verify the sources, you check for assumptions, then you train the intern by giving him or her feedback. And another interesting thing you can do is by injecting a prompt where you can just initially mention, review your answer for logical errors before finalizing. So that before it gives you an output, it can actually verify itself instead of you doing it. But I would still recommend you do this. Now, this review your answer for logical errors usually works really well for agentic systems where you have AI agents who have access to your Gmails, your phone numbers, your browsers. So there it helps. But for an LLM, this is not very helpful. Still use it, but I would recommend you verify the numbers, sources, and assumptions yourself. And over time, your involvement goes down because AI improves just like an intern. And finally, let's build an operating system for you. Now, everyone watching this video, doesn't matter if you're an intern, an employee, a founder, a senior manager, wherever you are in your life, right? Figure out an action plan. I want you to identify 3 recurring tasks. And let's say your recurring tasks are you have to book Google Meets every day. You have to check and research the internet because you're a content creator to get ideas, right? This is what I do. Every morning I have a workflow set up where my open clock gives me all the most viewed topics for that day, so I can make videos on that. So I have a framework for it. Similarly, figure out 3 recurring tasks that you have every day and build a workflow using the prompt architecture. Give the framework, give the role, give the task, give the constraints, give the system, and then add multiple steps to build a workflow and actually build a nice prompt out that gives you the desired outputs you want. And I promise you, if you do this properly with time, you'll become a very good prompt engineer. That way you don't just ask, you actually design. I hope you all learned something new today. I'll be giving this lecture in IIM Bangalore. It's going to be 6 hours long. I don't know how I'll convert this 20-minute video into a 6-hour long lecture, but I'm sure I'll be able to do it. If you like this, do subscribe to my channel. I'll be making a lot of interesting videos. The whole channel is about entrepreneurship and nothing else. Anything else I speak about, I'll make sure to anchor it with entrepreneurship. Cheers.